Let me give you an example of something I thought was fascinating. When the governor of Hebron told me that about 3 months ago that the security forces had rounded up 4 guys who were guilty of some kind of a criminal ring, and they had incarcerated them, they were in jail. And true to form, the next morning the governor goes into work and he finds 4 sheikhs sitting outside his office, and he knew what was coming. These were guys of the most powerful clan in the Hebron area, and his experience with these guys in the past had always been, give us our guys back, you can't have them, we got them, we know how to deal with this. Well, this day was different. He said as he was sitting in his office, they came in and the head sheikh said, we know you picked up 4 of our men last night, and we've been watching what you've been doing here for the last 2 months. We just have to tell you that we believe in you, and you can have them. We don't know how to deal with these guys. They're yours, the authority's back, let's go. Well, I was in Hebron last week, where a company, about 125 men, of the Jordan-trained 2nd Special Battalion of the National Security Forces is operating under the authority of the Palestinian Area Commander, reinforcing the police and providing a gendarme presence in what Oslo called Area A, and also in Area B, which is, according to Oslo, Israeli control. Why are they in Area B? Because the Israeli army commander in the area says, I need their help, and I can trust these guys. They don't lie to me anymore. That's, again, a pretty significant transformation. And I will tell you that what I saw, and what I get reports from my Canadians and British who travel more than I do, is the transformation in what was arguably the politically most difficult city in the Palestinian territories has been profound. And in the midst of all this, there have been no clashes between the Palestinian security forces and the IDF, or the Palestinian security forces and the Israeli settlers who happen to live in the area. Now that's pretty amazing, and I think we're pretty pleased with that. Across the West Bank, these security campaigns have featured clamping down on armed gangs amid a visible police presence, dismantling illegal militias, work against illegal Hamas activities, and a focus on the safety and security of Palestinian citizens. Crime is down. Teenage girls in Jenin can visit their friends after dark without fear of being attacked. Palestinian shops are now open after dark. They never were. A year ago, they weren't. And life is approaching normal in many of these areas. In a report published at the end of February, the International Monetary Fund, which is always critical of everybody, wrote, quote, sorry there, Secretary Wolfowitz, but that's, Palestinian shops, he wrote that during 2008, the Palestinian Authority made substantial progress in establishing security in several Palestinian cities in the West Bank by deploying police and security forces. This has brought about a large measure of stability and business confidence, and 2008 was the most profitable year for the Palestinian Authority in the past decade. Now, in my meeting with Palestinian commanders last week, from Tulkarm and Nablus in the north to Hebron and Bethlehem in the south, there was profound confidence in their capability and positive comments about their cooperation with the Israeli army in the area. In Bethlehem, surprisingly, the area commander proudly noted that he and the local Israeli brigade commander have worked out a deal where the curfew that Israel has always applied since 2002 in the West Bank no longer applies in Bethlehem, and that the Palestinians are now authorized to run checkpoints of their own to control smuggling activity 24/7. The situation may be fragile. There are many challenges ahead, but this is real progress in changing facts on the ground. But the big challenge, and this is the one I want you all to take away if you take away nothing else tonight, was in January 2009. As the English officers on my team would say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and over the past year, no security challenge in the West Bank has even come close to the challenge the Palestinians had in maintaining law and order during Operation Cast Lead, the Israeli ground invasion of Gaza in January. Before the ground invasion, my IDF colleagues warned in confidence that massive civil unrest in the West Bank was coming. Some even predicted a third intifada, something they dreaded, but they were willing to risk to stop the rocket fire against southern Israel. Yet, as it turned out, None of these predictions were true. Demonstrations occurred. There were some loud rallies, but the promised days of rage, demanded repeatedly by Hamas, failed to materialize. And why was that? Well, there were two reasons. The first was, I think, the new professionalism and competency of the new Palestinian security forces, guaranteed a measured and disciplined approach to the popular unrest. Their guidance from the Prime Minister and President was clear. Allow demonstrations, but do not allow them to become violent, and keep the demonstrators away from the Israelis. This time, unlike any time in the past, the Palestinian President and Prime Minister had tools adequate to the task. The IDF also felt, after the first week or so, that the Palestinians were there and they could trust them. As a matter of fact, a good portion of the Israeli army went off to Gaza from the West Bank. Think about that for a minute. And the commander was absent for 8 straight days. That shows the kind of trust they were putting in these people now. Anyway, the Israelis deliberately kept a low profile. They stayed away from the demonstrators, and they coordinated their daily activity with the Palestinians to make sure they weren't in the wrong place at the wrong time for either an inadvertent clash or just to stay out of the way of the demonstrations that were coming. So a typical thing would be the Palestinian commander would call the Israeli commander in the area and say, we've got a demonstration going from point A to point B that's very close to your checkpoint here at Bet El. We would appreciate it for 2 hours if you would leave the checkpoint so that we can get the demonstrators through, bring them back, you can come back. And that's exactly what they did. Amazing. Widespread demonstrations against Gaza invasion occurred, of course, but they were largely peaceful and they never got out of control. The police and the gendarmerie applied the training they had learned in Jordan, and unlike past events, not a single Palestinian was killed in the West Bank during the 3 weeks of the Israeli presence on the ground in Gaza. That's pretty good. The second reason, which is one that I think we need to do a little more study, maybe the Washington Institute can help us with this, was one I didn't expect. I heard this in the North, I heard it in the South. The consistent theme was that although the people in the West Bank did not support the Gaza invasion, as a matter of fact, they were extremely angry with Israel for doing it, they didn't support Hamas even more. What I'm saying here is they showed their support for the people by blood drives, clothing drives, food drives, things like this. But they were not out there to demonstrate in favor of Hamas. They were out there to demonstrate in favor of the people of Gaza. But Hamas was clearly not on their dance card. Why? Because Hamas was perceived as having brought disorder and disaster to Gaza. And the people in the West Bank simply didn't want that anymore. Plus, they had a security force amidst them that they were beginning to respect. The way I would put it is, the prospect of order trumped the prospect of chaos.